Thanks for calling the Beards and Sundries hotline. You've reached Anthony. Leave a message after the beep.
Hello, beardos. Do you like scary movies? I hope you do, because you're in one.
And welcome back.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to Season 2, Episode 9 of Beards and Sundries.
9 is fine.
9.
9 and wine.
9 and wine. What a fine time. That's right, guys. If you're back with us, it's time for another lunch break here at Beards and Sundries, the shop where three gay men with beards do inventory on a new sundry item in each episode.
My name is Jay, and...
Oh my god.
And I'm Anthony, and we all go a little mad sometimes.
And I'm Joe, the neglected Jiffy Pop on the stove that's about to bust. And today's sundry item is the iconic Scream series. That's right, Beardos. Scream 6 is set to come out on March 10th, so today we're going to chat about some of the iconic series of films that has led to this moment, the way this series paved the way for others' success, and later on we have some Beardo-submitted sundries and a fun homebrewed game courtesy of Jay.
Joe, am I going to get stabbed in my sundries?
Stabbed in the butt. That's right. Speaking of, if you guys are new to our show and you're just wondering what the hell a sundry is, the term comes from an old English word meaning odds and ends. Now, today it's used mainly in retail to group together things that don't really have group of their own. So, as three very horror-obsessed gay men with beards, we are using the term to group together the wide range of topics that we cover.
That was fantastic.
Wow, what a screamer of an intro.
It was so scary.
By the way, did any of your sundries blow away last night in the weather we had in Oklahoma?
Actually, no. Our sundries stayed right in place, thank God.
You guys, we have some firm beliefs here at Beards and Sundries, and one of them is that climate change is real. And we saw some crazy weather here in Oklahoma last night. In the good old month of February, there was a tornado watch in a good part of the state. We only had a tornado watch up here. Jay, you had some warnings down near you, didn't you?
I was in a tornado warning. So keep in mind, we are recording on February 27th. So this all happened February 26th. And I think I was in a tornado warning for an hour and 30 minutes, possibly.
And how did you prepare yourself?
I drank wine and I meal prepped. And I was sitting there and I was talking to my boyfriend and I'm literally like opening my bottle of wine. And I'm literally like, this is bathroom tornado, not like cellar tornado. And I was like popping this bottle of wine.
Were you putting Jiffy Pop on the stove while you're talking on the phone?
Yeah. And the rotation, I'm pretty positive, went over the east side of my neighborhood. Didn't do any damage, but it did blow a couple things over on the highway just north of me. Now, south of me in Norman, Oklahoma, like a full-blown tornado went through and tore up several houses and businesses down there.
I saw that on the news when I was leaving work.
It was quite the drama here in Oklahoma City, so everything's fine here now.
It's great having tornado season start in February.
In February!
We used to get snow and ice storms in the winter. Like, we would get regular winter weather.
Yeah.
Well, and California got a ton of snow this week, too.
I don't know. It's stupid weather here now. Like, climate change is fucking us up the ass.
And without any wine beforehand.
But fucking climate change.
And I don't have any poppers.
Oh my god. I just about spewed my wine.
So that's enough about the weather. Let's get into something a little scarier. Our first topic, the iconic first film, Scream 1.
Ooh.
Or as it was known at the time, Scream.
Oof. What a great film. Although I'm pretty sure while that was in production, they already had, they were writing Scream 2, which is why it came out a year later.
Directed by Wes Craven, correct?
Wes Craven directed the original one, yes.
I feel like it kind of restarted the horror slasher genre, updated it for the 90s, and kind of served as a jumping pad for more things to follow in its wake.
Yeah.
I could see that. Yeah.
And it's one of my favorites purely for nostalgic reasons. Like, I remember watching it when I was quite young. Because it came out in 96? And I don't remember specifically when I watched it. I feel like I was probably 6 when I saw it. So it was probably pretty much way too much of a movie for me at the time. But I love it today for that reason.
Well, it was a great trope, right? It was high school students, and then it was a whodunit, and it was them trying to figure it out, the race against time. No one knew who did it. I thought it was, back then, it was this revolutionary kind of storyline. Now, has it been recreated and replicated tons of times since then? Yes. But it was great, and kind of changed the scene whenever it came out.
It did. It introduced the trope of having two killers, and having that be a crux of the story. So that was a really big change. But this movie is also Wes Craven's commentary on the slasher genre in general.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is why you get so much information about movies. That's why they talk about movies and films so much in this movie, is that it's Wes Craven talking about movies inside of a movie.
Yeah.
Well, it was also inspired by a real-life case. It was influenced by the case of the Gainesville Ripper. The screenplay, originally titled, ironically, Scary Movie, was bought by Dimension Films and was retitled by the Weinstein brothers just before filming was complete.
Ew.
Well, Scream actually marked a change in the genre as it cast already established and successful actors, which was considered to have helped it find a wider audience, including a significant female viewership.
I can see that. Drew Barrymore.
The poster and the box art featured her prominently, and she doesn't even make it 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know. As her character, Casey Becker, is the second person to die in the film.
She was absolutely the trailer of that's how you knew the film. And then you're like, haha, this is going to be great. Boom, that's it.
Nope, dies immediately.
Just FYI, in case you haven't listened or watched this film, spoiler alerts?
It's 96. If you haven't seen this film,
yeah,
I'm not giving you spoiler alerts for 23-year-old films. Wait, no. Is it 23? 27.
27? Yeah.
Yeah, it's 27 years old.
Yeah, it's coming up on as old as we are.
Yeah, one day it'll be 28, just like me.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So Drew Barrymore, the opening scene, right? So if a call comes in, she's home alone, she's about to watch a video, unknown call comes in.
She's expecting her boyfriend, Steve.
Yes.
He's big, and he's played football, and he'll kick your ass.
And then he's like, turn on the pool lights. And she's like, what? And then she does, and then Steve's been captured. Oh, no.
Well, you can't forget, he's calling under the guise of calling a wrong number at first, and then she sort of chats with him.
Yeah.
Which, again, this is 1996, so
So the landline phone call was totally normal.
When a stranger calls us, we don't even answer the fucking phone.
Oh my gosh. No, if it's a number I don't know, why would I answer it?
Yeah, it's a number I do know. Sometimes I don't answer it.
Exactly.
I don't even answer my door if somebody knocks on it. Literally, there's been a guy going around my neighborhood that's been trying to sell pest control. I was in my living room and still wouldn't answer the door.
Is it ironic that he himself is a pest?
He was a super pest. I should have sprayed him.
Oh.
No, so that opening is so iconic. Obviously, it's the whole film is iconic.
Beautiful golden scene, though.
Then, of course, she's popping the popcorn. It's this slow intro that the caller is getting more and more malevolent as this conversation goes on.
And the music starts to build in the background.
Yeah, the first slip up is you never told me your name. And she's like, why? She's, oh, because I want to know who I'm looking at.
And then you're like, what? And then there's this big music sting.
Well, then he says, I want to know who I'm talking to. And she says, that's not what you said. And then it starts building all this suspense. And that's when things take a turn, because then she hangs up and he's like, wait, don't hang up on me. Wait, don't hang up on me. She hangs up. Then he calls again and she answers. And he's like, if you hang up on me again, bitch, I'll cut you like a fish, or something like that.
And she was like, I don't even like fish, and then hung up again. I'm vegan.
And then her parents get home just a little too late.
And then her getting killed Her
Typical
death
boomers.
scene is so graphic. And I remember thinking that specifically in 1996 as a 12-year-old who's like watching this thinking like, oh my God, not only is she getting like stabbed multiple times, but like then she gets gutted and hung from a tree, which I admire Stu and Billy's effort to like hang her up from the tree before her parents could get outside to see it.
Which makes me think they were both there. Because the strength of lifting a dying dead weight body up into the tree, tying her up in what, like 10 seconds? Like, I think they were both there to lift her up.
And I vividly remember talking about this in our horror movie
That's right, we did talk
episode.
about this.
Because I remember bringing up, I was like, can you imagine how difficult it is trying to string up these people on football goals and trees? When I get it, you may be stronger than the person, but that's a lot of weight.
That's a lot of weight. And the speed at which they found her and caught her outside makes me think that one of them was outside the whole time.
Actually, I have plenty of notes on that in all of our sequels that I wrote notes about how quickly things worked. So
Real notes this time, listeners. He's actually taken notes this time and not just faked it.
I actually took my pen and wrote real words, which that's new for me.
That is new for you. It makes for a really gruesome scene because she's strung up by her neck at two parts of this branch and she's gutted. So like, how did they get that done so quickly? And how was she tied that way? Like, I don't know. I see it and it's the only part of the movie where I'm like, it's a little plot holy, but you know, it makes for a great scene.
Movie magic.
Magic.
Well, Drew Barrymore as Casey Becker, of course, iconic. But, 10 minutes in,
Dead.
No more Casey.
Steve, dead. Casey Becker, dead.
So, then we get to Neve Campbell as Miss Sidney Prescott. Also iconic. We start with her in her room typing on the computer, and then the boyfriend shows up. Billy.
All I could think of is no, I can't bring it up because you said you'll bring it up later, but remember this moment. Scary movie. Because my brain cannot separate them for some reason.
So she's great. She's the heroine. She's not a blonde bimbo. She's a smart brunette female. So that's kind of a departure from what we see in the past, right?
That was a departure, but she was a virgin.
Yes, she's a virgin. She's more of a brain kind of character. She's very smart and resourceful, as we see, because of course she survives. But she's kind of like she has her friend group, but she's not the most popular girl in school. But, she's smart, resourceful. Her dad is a single dad. He's not really there for a lot of it. Her mom has been murdered in the past, and that's kind of where her background comes into it. But yeah, I think she was great. She was a great casting choice as the lead because she's kind of quick. She has this kind of like stoic kind of way that she brings the character to life. And I think she did a really good job being the final girl.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely agree.
And the settings themselves, like her house is like on this beautiful hillside, and then the house at the end of the film where the party is that they revisit later in the series, beautiful house there. All the sets were done so well to portray like the high school was perfect setting. The house party at the end was your typical high school party where everyone's there getting drunk, and it really, like, going back and watching it, you're like, man, this is just so similar to other movies. But you have to remember that this movie kind of set the stage for that genre to kind of take off in that direction.
It took tropes from other movies and integrated them into itself for the purposes of commenting on those tropes while simultaneously inventing other tropes.
Yeah, well put.
Great job.
It's funny because the way this film loops Sidney Prescott in as the main character is that the next day she's on her way to school and she's with her best friend Tatum. And there's just this ruckus at school. There's reporters, there's police, and the school is just awash with all of this like chatter. And that's when she finds out that there have been 2 murders. And then she is immediately not implicated, but people think of her, especially like the principal and the police, because she's the daughter of Maureen Prescott, who was previously murdered. And in their small town, that connection was immediate. And so that's how they sort of rope her in as the main character.
And then we meet Gale Weathers.
Oh, also iconic. played by Miss Courtney Cox, as she was known back then. So Gail is like this in-your-face reporter who's trying to get the next big scoop because she wants to be big and successful and famous. And then later on, she writes a book, right?
Yeah, so she writes a book about the Woodsboro murders. Later in the second one, she's already written it. But she's like the in-your-face, like, I'm going to get the scoop no matter who I offend. And of course, like, she offends Sydney, and Sydney ends up punching her at least once.
I also want to touch upon Tatum, who was played by Rose McGowan. I thought she was great as the best friend. So she's kind of like Sydney's protective best friend. So she supports Sydney. She kind of tries to shelter her. She escorts her away from Gail right before the iconic punch scene. And then later on at the house party, there's this meme that goes on every year around Halloween time. And the text says, "Are you excited for Halloween?" And then it says, "Me, colon." And then it shows Tatum in the garage and her nipples are like sticking through her shirt. And it just always gets me in the mood for Halloween every year. It's just so classic.
And then, of course, we can't not talk about Matthew Lillard as Stu Macher, Tatum's boyfriend.
Man.
Matthew Lillard can play several roles, and all of them are insane.
Yeah. Yeah, he was so good as the second killer because he was a little more unhinged. So it was fun to kind of see him do his monologue at the end of the movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he was just crazy pants the entire time. Oh, so also when they are at the school, of course, like, the police are interrogating people at the school, and then you find out that the principal is none other than Henry Winkler, the Fonz himself.
Yeah, the Fonz. I always forget about that.
And so, you know, the scene where he's at the school by himself, and then he hears stuff out in the hallway, and he opens up the door and you see the janitor.
Yeah.
So, couple of things about the janitor. The janitor is dressed all of
Isn't
Freddy
he wearing
Krueger with the hat and the striped sweater. That janitor is played by Wes Craven.
Really? I think I saw that once.
Other Easter egg that I caught the last time I watched this, and I'm sure if I had looked up Easter eggs, it's probably a pretty commonly known one, but while Sydney and Billy are doing the above the clothes stuff, that in that first scene with them together, the song "Don't Fear the Reaper" is playing in the background in a very, it's like a remake of it. And so a subtle illusion that Billy Loomis is, of course, the killer.
Oh.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, and then, of course, later on, there's the scene where he's in the bedroom with her, and then the gloves and cell phone fall out of his pocket. So then she starts to assume that he's the killer, and then he gets interrogated at the police station, and she doesn't want anything to do with him. Yeah. So then the seeds of doubt are planted pretty early on. So you're like, well, of course it's Billy. And then at the end, there's the twist where you find out that there's two of them.
But it's not Billy.
Yeah, so she gets that other call, the other threatening call, which of course then later on we find out was from Stu. And we're always so hyper-focused on there being one killer that immediately they release Billy.
How could it have been Billy? He scared away the killer.
Because everyone's scared of Skeet Ulrich.
And then speaking of the police, we can't forget about Dewey, right? Played by David Arquette.
I cannot wait to get into my sequel notes about him.
He's the classic bumbly sheriff deputy. You know, he's endearing. He doesn't really know what he's doing. And is that how he and Courtney Cox met? Did they meet on the scene of that movie, or did they know each other already?
Oh, yeah. They met at a pre-party prior to filming the first Scream film. And so yeah, they met through the movie.
So then she became Courtney Cox Arquette, and then, quick side tangent, for a terrible show Friends that I hate. I hate the show Friends, I'll just say that.
I don't like Friends either. So bad.
Hate it.
But when she got married and hyphenated her name, she didn't want things to be awkward on the title cards, so they added -Arquette to everyone else's name on the intro for that episode. So everyone was, whatever their name was, Arquette, which was kind of funny.
Jennifer Aniston Arquette.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like the only funny thing that show ever did.
Without a laugh track.
The only one.
That's why it was funny, because they didn't have to force anyone to laugh.
But anyway, back to Scream. Woo! One last main character we can't forget about, Randy Meeks, played by Jamie Kennedy. He's the movie know-it-all, right?
Before Jamie Kennedy became completely unhinged.
And he's also kind of an intricate part of the film in a very subtle way where he ties together a lot of what happens with past movies. And so he's very important without being important.
Yeah, so he's definitely an integral part for sure.
It's funny because I feel like Randy was written as a plot device to
Yeah.
tie the meta commentary of the film into the film itself. Like he's there to take this overarching message that Wes Craven wanted to send to people and putting it into the film as a character.
Which, ironically, when we get to the game later, is actually why I included him. I was like, he's not really an essential character, but he is. So in our game, I was like, I think he's important.
Scream would not have been Scream without Randy.
Exactly.
Before we move on, I do want to talk about the ending because it is also a very classic movie ending. You know, you find out that not only is there one killer, but there are two. Because initially you think that Stu is the only killer. Randy's like, oh my God, it's Stu. He's gone mad. And then the big reveal is fucking Billy Loomis going, we all go a little mad sometimes. That's how we find out that Billy Loomis is also a killer. And then, of course, it goes through the whole...
He reveals the voice changer that he used.
Voice changers, yes, absolutely. And then, of course, it introduced the film trope of the double tap. You got to make sure you shoot them in the head or they're not dead.
Yeah.
Which I don't know why they don't do it more often. I see it in TV all the time. I'm like, this motherfucker ain't dead. Shoot him in the head.
And I kind of love the campy way that they're always like, you know, they talk about the jump scare and how they're not dead. And then all of a sudden they actually play it out. And so it's like funny and scary. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, so that's a lot of good info about the first movie, the first very iconic film in the franchise. So now I thought we could kind of move on and talk about the sequels. So, Scream 2. How did we get to Scream 2?
So it takes place with Sydney, and she is in college. And of course, Randy has come along with her. So there's a recurring character that comes back.
Ooh.
But she's in a whole different setting now. But it doesn't open on that. It opens on Jada Pinkett Smith.
Great opening.
And Omar Epps going to attend the filming of the movie Stab.
Stab.
That opening actually made me terrified of movie theaters for a while because I was an impressionable child watching terrifying movies.
Of course, they get in the film and like the swag that they give away for this movie is a full-on Ghostface costume.
Yeah, like everyone's wearing Ghostface.
So then you have a whole theater full of Ghostface costumes.
And they're all crazy and loud.
So then what happens after the movie theater? Is it then cut to Sydney in college?
It is, yeah. So the very next thing that happens after the movie theater is that Sydney gets a phone call and it's Ghostface voice.
But it's on her new fancy caller ID. And it's the chunkiest device I've ever seen because that's back when you used to like plug your phone line into this separate box and then have an outline to your actual phone. And so she'd be like on the phone and she'd pick up the caller ID and be like, oh.
And she was like, it's blah, 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 blah. That's what your name is and where your number is. And did you know that these type of phone calls are misdemeanor felonies or whatever bullshit she says?
Basic bitch.
Because she's probably being plagued by them, right? After the events of the first movie and everyone knowing who she is.
She's become like, not a hermit necessarily. She's just a little less social than other people on her campus, like her roommate, who's trying to get her to pledge in a sorority with her.
Oh yeah, because Sydney now has a boyfriend.
She does. A hot boyfriend.
Who he's also in a frat of his own, because at some point in the movie, he gives her a necklace of his frat letters because...
Of his fraternity letters is a big
fraternity
deal.
Because that's a real big deal.
Then the very next character to die, though, is unfortunately played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, and it's Cece, who you're introduced to in their film class that they're all taking together, apparently.
Oh, California.
And Timothy Oliphant's character, who turns out to be the killer, one of the two killers.
So two killers again.
Oh, for sure.
So we're seeing a theme here.
Oh, obviously. And then Randy is in the class too. And then, weirdly enough, Joshua Jackson is also in that class, but he is just credited as like film student number 1.
What year was this that the second one came out?
97.
Yeah, it was literally a year later.
Wow. Turn and burn.
Jay, you have extensive notes on this film. Can you give us some fun facts?
Yeah, actually, I just want to go through my thoughts on this film, which I think you'll greatly appreciate. So it's just kind of a rehash of the entire film based on how my opinion worked. And I immediately said, opener of the theater scene, epic opening, made me terrified of theaters. And then I said, Sydney now has clunky caller ID. Kudos. Also, Timothy Oliphant and Laurie Metcalf, which Laurie was the police chief, which ended up being the other killer, and Timmy Oliphant.
She's Billy Loomis's mom, right?
She wasn't the police chief. She was a reporter.
She was a reporter.
Yes, and she's following around Courtney Cox.
She was Timothy Oliphant's mom, too, which we find out later in the film.
No, she was Billy Loomis's mom.
Oh, was that it? Shit, I can't keep track.
So that's her motivation, is that she was Billy Loomis's mom, which...
She was who?
Side note, Billy Loomis's mom.
As who? Got him.
I'm going to continue my notes really quick. Gail gets hit yet again and can't handle it, which seems to happen every film. Also, Cotton Weary is released from jail, and he's hot because he's Liev Schreiber.
Oh, he's so hot.
Oh, yes.
Also, what I started learning from Scream 1 and Scream 2 is how campy that Ghostface likes to slip in the back of scenes. Like, they're talking, and he's like, in the back of scenes. I started catching that trend really fast. Also, her boyfriend, Sydney's boyfriend, is kind of weird and can't take a lot of hints because, like, she's like, hey, we need to take a break for your safety. And then all of a sudden in school, he's, like, singing to her and being crazy. Also, why does Randy look like an elf in this film? And then I said, beyond that, I was like, oh, well, doesn't matter. He died. Then, my favorite part was Dewey can't seem to stay out of the way of a knife. Is he a bad cop? And I need you to read, is he a bad cop in Carrie Bradshaw's voice? Also, Sydney hired security.
But...
Sydney hired security guards, and they suck. Sydney's boyfriend also might be in a frat full of gays because whatever he missed, they like picked him up and hung him up, and he was like practically nude. And I'm like, this is weird. And then whenever they're, man. Yeah, that's true. And then last thing I have is whenever they're killing Timothy Oliphant, a lot of gunshots just to kill him. I mean, it took a lot to get him down. And Laurie Metcalf is fantastic at being crazy, so that's my Scream 2 notes.
She really is. She brings that Aunt Jackie energy to everything she's ever in.
She does great. I love her as an actress, honestly.
Yeah, me too. She was really good in Desperate Housewives when she was Carolyn Bixby for like 2 episodes.
Also, while Anthony disappeared, I have one small side tangent about Wes Craven. And I did not know this until recently, but he I think, made my favorite movie with Meryl Streep in it in the 90s called Music of the Heart. And it is purely... Yeah, it is purely based on a true story of a violin teacher in New York.
He made that?
It's fantastic film. It's a Wes Craven film.
Not quite as much bloodshed, but it's good.
Yeah, a little less bloodshed, but it also has...
Meryl Streep plays Billy Loomis's childhood violin teacher, but she's kind of turned her tides and moved across the country and changed her ways.
This film also has Angela Bassett, Gloria Estefan, Cloris Leachman, and Aidan Quinn in it. Fantastic film.
I didn't know that. I always think of Wes Craven for his horror films.
Yeah,
I don't get outside my box too often.
This is far from a horror film. Great film. Anyway, sorry, back to Scream.
So then, anything else on Scream 2, Jay?
No, I finished through my notes. Scream 3, I definitely took a few more.
Well, we can't gloss over Courtney Cox's bangs.
Oh, and that was definitely a note in it, so I can skip that one, thank God. Let me just scratch that little doozy out. So I opened it with, how is Ghostface magically 2 steps ahead? Every fucking thing, he's always way ahead of everyone. And then I said, Cotton's white suit. Ew. And then I was like, but it doesn't matter because he died. And then I followed along with, hello, Patrick Dempsey, which people would know as McDreamy from...
McDreamy.
Yes, from...
Grey's Anatomy.
Yes, Grey's Anatomy. I was like, what color is that? Blue's Anatomy? And then I was like, oh, that's right. This is the film where they were making the movie within the movie. And then I said, I almost think Parker Posey plays Gale Weathers better than Courtney Cox.
Oh, I agree with you there.
And then I skimmed to the part where I said, Sydney's mom, Dream, reminds me of The Exorcist. Just needs vomit.
So, Beardos, we're going to have to eat a little bit of crow at this point in the podcast. And some of you may have already been typing up mean emails to us, but please go and delete them.
Or submit them.
Whatever. I don't care. Scream 3 is the only Scream film that has one killer. And it is just Roman.
Wow.
Oh.
Write those complaints, because that's definitely something you can rag on Anthony about.
Don't rag on me. I didn't know that there were 2 killers in each one, but there really weren't 2 killers in each one.
I would never claim something like that, especially if somebody was wearing a wig through the entire movie.
I'll have you know I was right about that film. I was incorrect about this one, but I was right about that one.
Oh, he admits it.
Maybe someday, Anthony, but not today.
But yeah, I didn't realize. I guess I don't like Scream 3 at all, because it was one where like Neve Campbell didn't want to be in the film, so she's just not there for like half.
It's the most disliked film by everyone, apparently.
The only part I thought was kind of cool was how they're doing the chase scene through the house, like the Loomis house, and then she runs, or is it her own house? But like anyway, she tries to run for cover in the bedroom, and then she forgets that it's a movie set, and she crashes through the door and then almost falls down 3 stories because it's just a fake wall.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Well, so my favorite part was at one point I'm like, how the fuck did Joe Swanson get in this movie? Which is Patrick Warburton.
It's the deep voice.
And then this scene is the only scene that, besides the film or the movie theater scene, this scene, the fax scene, where they're just constantly waiting on the faxes to say the next part of the story while they're in the house.
I forgot about that, yes.
And then I'm just like, oh yeah, a Michael Bay explosion. Kudos. And then after that, the house explodes and Dewey's shooting. And I said, why the fuck does Dewey have a gun? It's useless. He doesn't know how to use it.
He's like a fucking stormtrooper.
Yeah, it's terrible. And then Carrie Fisher has a cameo, and I said, love this.
Oh yeah, she plays that records keeper for Hollywood,
yeah.
right?
Who they're like, aren't you Carrie Fisher? And she goes, no. And she's like, everyone just thinks I look like her.
Yeah.
It's the best part of the film.
Oh yeah, great little scene. And then I kind of got on this tangent where I was like, Ghostface murders a lot of well-trained people, but he can't seem to kill Sydney.
I mean, I understand it from a story arc perspective because she's supposed to be the final girl. Like, you got to kill her last.
And then I fell back on Dewey and I said, surprise, Dewey got hurt again, which then he recovers and he goes to shoot Ghostface and the gun doesn't work. So I said, still can't work a gun.
I've been like hypothesizing that somehow Dewey survived his attack and they like faked his death in Scream 5. And then like he shows up in Scream 6 in like a wheelchair.
I made it. And then he shoots, but can't hit anything.
He's literally shooting behind him.
In this film, the killer is the long-lost brother of Sydney, correct?
He is her half-brother.
At this point, I'm just like, what in the days of our lives is going on here?
Yeah, pretty much.
That was too much. They shoehorned so much in this film, and it just wasn't good.
Yeah, and so I said, spite? ? He wasn't a full sibling? I'm confused.
Yeah.
No, his literal motivation is that he had mommy issues.
Spite. Yeah, okay.
These are like, mommy didn't love me, but she loved you.
Oh, and then Sydney wears a vest, survives the gun shooting, hides, calls him in return, and then murders him. It's like playing the beginning of the movie. Shock, shock. But at the finale of this film, Dewey finally gets a kill. Kudos.
Finally. On the board.
And then he gets a toxic engagement with Gale. What a sad little life for him.
Then we find out more about that later. In Scream 4, when they're married.
Oh, yeah, which plenty of notes on that.
I don't know anything about Scream 4.
The opening to this one was a bunch of different stab movie openings to trick you into thinking.
The opening of this one.
And so, like, you just keep, like, it's almost like a reoccurring dream, but different stab movies. And then finally, it's the Scream opening.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And the second one of it is Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin are the actors.
Really?
Yeah. And so, like, it's Anna Paquin is commenting on the first opening scene, and she's all like, it's just a bunch of gore and blah, blah, blah. She's going on about how much she doesn't like it. And she's like, you can see it all coming from a mile away. And then all of a sudden, Kristen Bell just turns and stabs her.
And then it's like, stab 7. No, I'm kidding. And I wrote down, surprise, Gail's still a bitch. And marriage issues.
She's not a bitch. I will give her, in this movie, she's not a bitch. She is absolutely entitled to be as upset as she is.
Yeah, she is.
Like, he starts treating her like his wife and not as a member of the press later on. And I'm like, you're being kind of an asshole. Like, she's doing what her job is.
And marriage issues all created by a blonde little girl. Oh, and Dewey's misogyny.
What is her name? Deputy Judy?
Yeah.
Was that her name? I don't remember.
I think so.
So my favorite part that I wrote down from this film, and I've been waiting to get to this, was there's one point where I don't even remember how the chain of events happens, but they get a phone call, and then he murders a girl in the house across the street.
Yes.
And they watch it happen. And I said, I love the old-fashioned way of getting a girl's attention by murdering a girl and shoving the dead girl out the window from across the street and then waving at your crush. Is chivalry dead?
God.
Killer must be related to Houdini because in every single movie, this is where I recognize this, he's very good at just disappearing quietly. A lot. And I said, I don't understand. My ankles pop way too much for that capability.
Girl, for real.
These are teenagers. They're fine. Although Laurie Metcalf.
Yeah. Where's her cartilage at?
And then I had a little tidbit about poor Rebecca, which was the girl that worked for Sydney at the hospital that Sydney fired. And I said...
And then she had a really bad day that day.
I know. I was like, fired, then murdered. Talk about a bad day.
She must work at Beards and Sundries.
I've been murdered 6 times walking out of work.
Yeah, seriously. Getting stabbed over a Boda box.
Also, this film also showed me why on earth do cops die so easily in horror films?
That's fine.
Oh, and then I skimmed over to Sydney's poor friend dies getting stabbed through the mail slot in her front door. And I'll think twice about getting bills in the mail now.
It's not her friend. It's her aunt.
Oh, was that her aunt?
That's her aunt, yeah.
Oh, well, anyways, I said I'll think twice about getting bills in the mail now. Doesn't seem so bad.
I particularly liked this film because the whole twist, of course, is that Emma Roberts, who you initially think is like one of the new protagonists, turns out to be the antagonist. Like, she's been the killer the whole time. And her motivation is as old as fucking time. She just wants to be famous and not have to work.
Yeah.
She wants internet fame. And in 2011, who couldn't say the same?
Yep. I wrote at the end here, Jill's fucking crazy. I also put a note before they were at the hospital that I don't remember who, but some guy they shot him in the nuts first before shooting him in the head.
It was her boyfriend. And she's like, you don't cheat on me. And he goes, and shot him in the dick.
And I said, that's how my urologist got rid of my nut. Thank God he had good aim.
Man, good shot.
And then I ended this. I don't even remember what happened, but I remember I ended this with, surprise, Dewey is yet again useless.
Surprise, not.
But then we are gifted the semi-masterpiece that is Scream 5.
Which, to clarify, I opened with, wow, Dewey is also useless. This time he's sulking.
I feel like the Scream movies did this whole little arch thing for me because, like, Scream 1 is my favorite and Scream 5 is my second favorite, and then like 2 and then 4 and then 3 is obviously the worst.
That's funny. I feel the exact same way. That's the exact level I feel of that.
Well, and then of course Scream 5, I don't know if it introduced anybody else to her, but it introduced me to Jenna Ortega, and she has proven to be fantastic from what I've seen so far.
And Jack Quaid is in it, and Jack Quaid's a great actor.
Yeah, he really is too.
On this one, I said shocker. They're referencing horror film logic again, because that seems to be the theme of Scream, where everything's horror film based. And then I jumped right off to Little Wes dying and his mom, which again proves that cops in horror films are useless.
Although I will say Sheriff Judy had to get stabbed a lot more than most other cops in other movies.
That's true. She was the most resilient cop of all the cops, so we're getting better. Besides Dewey. Dewey's a weird story.
He died in this movie too.
Well, that's true.
Although she did have to literally like rip him in half to do that. So.
Yeah, I was like, Dewey finally fucking dies.
Finally. I knew they were going to kill one of those three.
I said Tara, who's in the hospital after being stabbed and hurt a ton at the opening, is still better than Dewey, who finally dies.
Exactly.
But Gail looks great.
I do like that they returned everything to Stu Macher's house and they looped that in by having
that was
one of
cool
the
how they did
killers
that.
be like the person, like her parents bought the house.
Which I said that OG house value has to be absolutely in the pits, which is why his parents could afford it.
Well, now it is for sure because 2 mass murders occurred there.
Well, and then on top of that, I wrote, I don't
know, California?
Why do we keep killing or attempting to kill people in kitchens? Does blood attract ants?
Do you want to get ants? Because this is how you get ants.
I will also say that was the most efficient gas stove I've ever seen. I have never seen a gas stove ignite that quickly.
The scene where Amber caught fire, I was like, that's unrealistic. But I ate that shit up.
I laughed. I laughed out loud.
I loved it. I didn't care at all how unrealistic it was.
It was a lot of unique kills in that film. Loved it.
So it's ironic that the working title was Scary Movie because our next topic is about the classic 2000 film, Scary Movie. And this was a film that was written by the Wayans brothers in 2000. And it was a spoof of both Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And it also roped in a couple of other films. There was the movie theater scene from Scream 2 that was kind of spoofed as well.
You on candid camera now.
This movie is highly offensive, of course, but it was 2000, so, whatever. It was so funny. It was on the nose. They nailed the subject material. I think they really touched on both the movies equally to kind of move them into one plot device. They nailed all the characters. Anna Faris as Cindy
Campbell, yeah.
Cindy Campbell was, oh my god, she was the perfect amount of parody, but also like just a little bit of serious to make you believe the film also, and it was just the right amount of humor. There are so many quotes from the movie that are still relevant today. I use them all the time.
All the time.
And then, of course, there's the 911 scene from the first movie of Scream where she's typing 911 call. But then in Scary Movie, she just types white woman in trouble. And then it cuts to
cops
the entire cavalry flying down the road. And
oh my God.
Such a dig, but it is so funny, especially considering who wrote it. And then the movie theater scene where he doesn't get stabbed through the head with a knife. He gets...
Ray gets impaled with a penis.
And then Brenda in the movie theater, she's being loud and obnoxious and answering a cell phone and putting up a video camera. And then instead of the killer killing her, all the other moviegoers kill her instead. And they're all getting in like all their stabs and they're hitting her with a baseball bat.
Because it's the initial old woman that makes me laugh, where she's like, "Give me that," and she grabs the knife from the killer and stabs her. And she's like, "Oh!" And then everyone's like bitching about what movie she's interrupted, and they're like, "This is from Big Mama's house."
And it's like a rabbi that makes the hit. Oh my god. And then god, what is it? It turns out that Ray was gay at the end and in love with...
No, Ray wasn't gay. It was Cindy's boyfriend was gay.
And then Ray wasn't gay?
Yeah, he's like, "You made love to me," and Ray's like, "No, you sucked my dick."
He's like, "Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter."
Ray's absolutely gay through the whole film, but won't admit it, and it's hilarious.
And then, there's the classic scene where she's spinning in front of the high school. She's like, "What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?" But in Scary Movie, she starts doing that scene, and then there's a suicidal teacher on top of the building, and he's like, "What am I waiting for?" And then you just hear him jumping down and he's screaming, "Fuck you!" And then you see his body land on the ground, and she's like, "Oh!" And she realizes what she did.
My favorite part is her going, "Oh, oh."
But instead, it somehow toes the line perfectly of being funny and hysterical and a parody, but also not so over the top that it's unwatchable. I think they really did a good job reining it in.
Fantastic. Loved it.
And then in Scary Movie, Gail Weathers is now called Gail Hailstorm, played by SNL's Sherry O'Terry. So she's just this over-the-top news reporter trying to get the scoop in whatever way she can. She actually turns out to make...
your ass looks fat.
Yeah, they're trying to get her out of the police station. She's trying to get her interview, and she goes, Cindy, your ass looks fat. And Cindy turns around and she goes, ugh, punches her in the face, and she goes, bitch! And Sherry O'Terry's character, Gail Hailstorm, does this like comedic and then turns into the camera and falls. And it's just this perfect like Hollywood actor trained way to take a punch and spin in front of the camera before you fall down, and it's delivered so perfectly.
I also love when she's interviewing the girl that's like at the makeout point, and the girl's like, I don't know, my boyfriend heard a noise in the bushes like 10 minutes ago. And she's like, do you think he's been murdered and you're next? And she's like, no, I never thought of that. And then the girl's yanked out of the car, being stabbed, and Gail's like, how do you feel? And she's like, so much pain. And then the killer's like, listen, I'm just trying to do a job around here. And then it morphs into a scene from the Blair Witch Project, and they're running through the woods.
The cameraman, she's like, Kenny, move your ass. And he's like, they're chasing me, Gail. And then they both fall. And then it just, like Jason, it turns into that scene from the Blair Witch Project, and just the snot's rolling out of her nose.
Oh my God, it's like
stupid.
bubbling and everything. I fucking love this film.
That's why I could watch it all the time.
Yes, I kind of want to watch it now just to laugh.
I know.
Yet again. I feel like we could go on talking about this movie forever.
Yeah, we've gone on enough time talking about scary movies, so I think it's time for a commercial.
I think so too.
Oh my God, it's definitely time for a commercial.
It's way due for a commercial.
And now, for a word from our sponsor, Poke, in theaters everywhere yesterday.
Hello? Who is this? Who is this? Oh, I must have dialed the wrong number. That's okay. You sound kind of hot. Thanks, I'm using a voice modulator. I'm a voice model. Is that a scary movie I hear in the background? Oh yeah, I'm just popping popcorn on the stovetop for some reason. And I'm gonna watch a real scary film called The Craft. Wish you were here to keep me safe. I've never been with a voice model before. Well, I've got good news. I'm already in your butt.
This March, get your popcorn and poppers ready. A new killer is on the loose in the city of Woodcock, and they're ready to give you a poking to die for. Go see the all-new thriller Poke, in theaters everywhere yesterday.
Oh my God, guys, I went and saw Poke yesterday, and it mortified my butt.
Mortified. It really has me divided, just like my cheeks.
I should have brought poppers. I wasn't ready.
I was split down the center, terrified.
Popcorn? No. Poppers. Poppers?
I'll be sitting on an ice pack for a few weeks now.
Oh, no.
So, does anyone have anything to check out?
I have something to check out.
And now for something to check out. So we've mentioned them on the podcast before, but I'm going to bring back up the Film Flamers because I think this is a very appropriate episode to do so. On our cruise that we talk about frequently on this podcast, we met a gentleman by the name of Robert Eppers, and he was wearing a shirt that said the Film Flamers. And I asked him about his shirt, and it turns out that was his podcast that he runs with his friend Chris. And they are called, of course, the Film Flamers. They are a horror movie podcast. They do reviews for horror and horror adjacent films. Yes, very fitting. They have, oh my gosh, they have hundreds of episodes. They've been doing this for like 4 or 5 years. They are a few reviews away from being able to be considered professional reviewers by Rotten Tomatoes and being able to adjust scores there. It's a very big deal. They have an extensive library of films they reviewed. Recently, they reviewed a somewhat controversial subject on this podcast. They reviewed The Craft.
Oh, I don't know. I hear it's pretty cringe.
I hear Robin Tunney had to wear a wig the whole time, which was a really great episode of the pod that I listened to, and it convinced me to buy the Craft soundtrack. So thanks, Robert. That's $10 that you owe me. But you should go check them out. They're at filmflamers.com. We'll link them in the show notes. They have different socials like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and YouTube. They only do podcasting. They don't do vodcasting, but you can find them pretty much wherever you get any podcast. So I will link their website in the show notes, and you can decide how to interact with them. But definitely recommend going over there and listening to some of their episodes.
I highly recommend the episode they did on Drop Dead Gorgeous because it was fantastic.
Go check them out for some more screams.
Great. Let's get some Beardo submitted sundries.
So this voicemail we received is actually the same gentleman that called and opened our show's voicemail last week. So Todd from Washington, D.C. loved that voicemail.
Absolutely floored. I was so flattered.
Yes.
Thank you so very much.
Todd, thank you so much. But he called shortly after leaving that voicemail. And for any of our listeners that remember, we discussed the Mardi Gras episode and the hanky code, and this voicemail refers to that.
Oh, okay.
It's Todd Franson again. Yes, it's Friday night. It is 6:52. I've had a few cocktails, and I just finished my magazine while watching you guys. And I just wanted to say that I especially liked the bit about the hanky code, because being a Gen Xer and learning the hanky code, the original one, it's gotten far way too fucking confusing, and there's too many goddamn colors, and nobody wanted plaid in there. What the fuck does camouflage mean?
What does camouflage mean? Someone look it up.
Yes, sir.
So that was our voicemail from Todd, which I loved that. I was like, I don't think this is an opener. This is great user content, though.
Oh, my God. Thank you, Todd, because seriously, what does camouflage mean?
If you know, let us know.
I don't know. It means I'm standing at attention. Woo!
We also received a review on Apple, which made me very excited, and it said, I love this podcast. Joe, Anthony, and Jay are so funny. I literally, lol. I can't wait to listen each week. I'm definitely a binge listener when it comes to podcasts, but I have to listen to this one each week. The topics are great, and I enjoy Jay and Anthony getting beat by Joe with the games at the end of each episode. Heart emoji.
We're so bad at them.
This is from a dear college friend who I also went to high school with. So thank you for that. I also enjoy beating them every week at the game.
He does every week. Week after
Every
week. It's
week.
just a slaughter.
You
should make some games, Joe, so that we can both lose.
Okay, I can definitely do that.
I'll go over a couple emails, and we have Derek from Indianapolis. Actually just sent this the day that
Hi, Derek.
the day our episode released.
Hi, Derek.
About last week on Sunday's episode, where we had the commercial about the shorty shorts.
I thought that might get some attention.
He's filing a complaint about misleading commercials, and he said he listened to it in the car and then went back to the house and pulled up the video to be very disappointed that none of us were sporting shorty shorts in the commercial.
Derek, give us just a couple of weeks, at least.
I promise, Beardos, we are working on this.
And he said, until this happens, I'll be purchasing my sundries at your competitors. And then he said, P.S. Thanks for bringing a smile to my face every Sunday fun day. Okay, so, and then last email I got, which George sends us an email almost weekly on our podcast. So, I need...
God love him. Thank you, George.
Keep them coming.
So George and Anthony from San Antonio, we love you. But George did a very quick one this week that made me laugh. And he caught up with our Mardi Gras episode. And it started off saying, Dick! And he goes, it's...
So we're already in the right mindset.
Yeah, and he's like, it's been a crazy week because they are selling their house right now. So they've had showings and all that, so it's been a hectic schedule for them.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
He goes, I love how Joe was so over y'all's shit. He was just tuning you all out. And then he said, I almost expected...
Hey, baby, weekly.
He's like, I almost expected air horns after every time you all said dicks.
Oh, don't encourage them, please.
Dicks!
I could go and re-edit that episode, George. There's nothing stopping me from doing that.
He has the technology.
So it was a great week for user content. If you have more user content, please send it to us. We would love to talk about it.
beardsandsundries@gmail.com.
This week, we have a homebrewed game from Jay.
Jay really outdid himself this time. Well, we're going to go back to a bit of a classic. Jay, why don't you tell us about it?
So we did this game before, and it was called Recast, where we ended up picking a movie and recasting it. And this time, I'm doing a campy recast of Scream. In just the first movie, we are going to recast 8 important people to the film, and I'm going to list them. And I'm going to list them from least important to most important, in my opinion, in a weird way. So we're going to recast Randy Meeks, which was played by Jamie Kennedy, Stu Macher, right?
Yep, Stu Macher.
Who was played by Matthew Lillard, Billy Loomis, who is played by Skeet Ulrich, Dewey, who is played by David Arquette, Gale Weathers, who is played by Courtney Cox, Tatum Riley, who is played by Rose McGowan, Sidney Prescott, who is played by Nev Campbell, and Casey Becker, who is played...
And the most important character, Casey Becker.
By Drew Barrymore, because Casey Becker is the iconic scene of the film, and I was like, she has to be most important. Do you want me to go first, or do you guys want to go first?
I think you should go first.
Also, last note on this is I gave you the option. You could choose anyone, any actor, dead or alive, to do this. So I'm going to start with Randy Meeks, which was played by Jamie Kennedy, and I'm replacing him with James Franco. And it's mostly because I think James Franco's kind of cute, and I just think he'd play the part well. And so there was no real campy part to that. I just kind of like James Franco. Anyways, Stu Macher, which was played by Matthew Lillard, he was kind of the dumb killer. I put Chris Pratt in there, but you have to think back to like Parks and Rec Chris Pratt. So like fat, dumpy, stupid.
You're calling that fat?
Okay, chunky, stupid. Sorry.
Chunky monkey wonky.
Chunky dumb stupid.
Anyways, and you've picked like 2 really problematic people off the bat, and I love it.
Yes, that was actually my reason. All the men are very problematic in my list.
Oh, great.
Because
who's Harvey Weinstein playing?
He's going to be like Billy Loomis, Harvey Weinstein.
I know.
Well, Billy Loomis, who was Skeet Ulrich, I recasted with Will Smith because he has this unexplained anger problem.
Oh my God. You know, it's funny that you said that because I actually, for this much of amount of a time, like just maybe a hair of a second, I considered doing the same thing.
And it's annoying because I just had this brief moment where somebody's like, could it be Billy? And he's like, keep my name out your fucking mouth.
That's what I thought when Jada got killed in the movie theater. Keep your knife out my fucking wife.
All right, and for Dewey, who was played by David Arquette, this one's a unique choice. I went with Liam Hemsworth, and it's because I don't like Liam Hemsworth. He's kind of a dick, especially with how he treated Miley, and Dewey is kind of useless in the film because he can't shoot, he can't do anything, so I was like, let's put somebody who's attractive-ish in this position, but who's a complete waste. Liam Hemsworth.
I get it. You know, he played Gale in the the Hunger Games movies, and I didn't care for him in those.
All right. Next is Gale Weathers, who was played by Courtney Cox. And this one, very strong about Sigourney Weaver.
Bitch.
I love Sigourney Weaver.
Good choice.
Gale is a very important character in these films. She keeps surviving. She keeps rocking it. She's always there, always fantastic. Sigourney Weaver.
It's fucking Scream 5, where Gail gets shot and then like later on comes back into the house. But instead of it just being her, it's Sigourney Weaver in full on that mech suit. She's like, stay away from her, you bitch!
All right. I'm moving on to Tatum Riley, who was played by Rose McGowan. Keep in mind, this was Sydney's friend. And I chose Paris Hilton.
Okay.
Because we know she's going to die. And like Wax House.
House of Wax.
I want to, yeah, House of Wax.
Wax House.
Sorry. Like House of Wax. I want to pull through her head again. But I would love to also see her crush in a garage door. And her tits would be perfect. Yeah. So anyways, that was my pick for the bestie. And then the last two, we have Sydney Prescott, who was played by Neve Campbell. Keep in mind, there's a little asterisk for this one. And I want it to be Jodie Foster, but with the voice she uses in Silence of the Lambs, where she talks with her little country. When I was a little girl.
Why? Just to be a troll?
Yes.
Okay, in true fashion. It would be so distracting. I kind of do want to see it now.
I know.
I can't get over thinking about that now.
I know. I was like, what do I want? And then I was like, I kind of want to see that because I just want to see how terrible it'd be with that voice. And then lastly, the opening to the film, the most important scene. Now we have to edit it a little bit. I don't want it to be as gory and terrifying. But Casey Becker, who was played by Drew Barrymore, Carol Channing.
I knew it. I fucking knew it.
I knew it. I fucking knew it. I knew at some point.
I told Joe before we started recording this, I was like, I know Jay is going to recast Carol Channing in one of the roles. I don't know which one, but I know he's going to.
Because what happens is it's the scene where the ghost is about to kill her, and she goes, "Oh, raspberries," and then it blacks out. It's like Scream.
And she's like trying to yell for her mom because, you know, like she gets throat punched in that scene and she
raspy.
can't yell.
It's a raspy voice.
Raspberries.
God, I knew it. I fucking knew it.
And like she answers the phone, they're like, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And she's like, "I don't know, Casablanca."
Okay, then I think I should go next because I have some eerie similarities, but I can explain myself.
Because I couldn't.
All right, so I'll try to go in the same order. So with Randy Meeks, played by Jamie Kennedy, I went a different route, and I picked Janelle Monáe because she's a very strong character. She's a woman of color, and she has the same similarity as, you know, Randy Meeks' niece is as a woman of color in Scream 5. So I thought that was an interesting route.
Janelle Monáe makes me question a lot of things about myself.
Also that.
Yep.
So I thought that'd be a fun choice. For Stu Macher, who was played by Matthew Lillard, I went with Zachary Quinto because I thought that he would be a good choice for one of the killers who is kind of like dark and brooding, but also kind of snarky. Also, to bring some humor, dark humor to it.
Great choice.
I could see that. He's good villain material.
Yeah.
Now, for Billy Loomis, played by Skeet Ulrich, I went with Dave Bautista, but 1996 Dave Bautista. And real quick, I want both of you to go to your Google and search Dave Bautista 1996. I'll wait.
Holy shit.
And you tell me that man couldn't lift up Casey Becker and string her in a tree.
I agree. Great choice.
Yeah. I want him to string me into a tree. And then gut me like a fish.
Or at least find my guts like a fish.
So then for Dewey, who was played by David Arquette, I went with Chris Pratt because I also thought chunky dunky stupid Andy Dwyer from Parks and Rec. I thought he would be great as the bumbly sheriff's deputy. So I put him as Dewey.
I cannot wait for you guys to hear who my Dewey is because
I'm so excited.
And then for Gail Weathers, who's played by Courtney Cox, I put Demi Moore. Now, a specific Demi Moore, as when she was in her element during Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, when she played the villain Madison Lee.
Yeah.
And she had the long, straight, dark hair, and she was a strong female.
I wasn't good.
I thought she could bring a great...
I was great.
Exactly. That kind of attitude. She'd bring great energy to the role of Gail Weathers as the hardened, stop at nothing, get the scoop kind of, reporter.
Yeah.
So I thought that'd be a good choice.
Great.
So then next for Tatum Riley, the bestie, who was played by Rose McGowan, I went with Carol Channing.
Fucking good.
And let me explain myself for this one. So I two iconic scenes. The first scene when Tatum pulls up to her house and she has that Volkswagen Beetle and she's like, "Get away from her! She has nothing to say." I thought that'd be great as Carol, like, "Get away from her! She's got nothing to tell ya!" And then she just ushers her away to the car and takes her away. And then her death scene in the garage. That is where she would be with her head in the dog door in the garage. And then as she's slowly going up towards the roof to her death, she goes, "Raspberries!" And then she gets cut off and dies.
I hate it here. The market has become unlivable.
Oh my god.
So just like Jay, that's the only dead actor I placed on this list.
Oh god. I fucking love this game.
And then, so for our main protagonist, Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell, I switched it up and I went with Jenna Ortega because I would love to see what energy she would bring to Sidney Prescott. So it'd be kind of like a time warp. She'd be like transplanted back into that era. Because I think she would bring a lot of great energy as the main character because she's such a strong actor.
Good point.
She'd be such a strong character. So I think she'd be a really good choice for Sidney. And then for the iconic Casey Becker, who was played by none other than Drew Barrymore, I went with Scary Movie, and I just placed Carmen Electra back in the spot because I would love to see Carmen do the scene true to form and see how she pulls it off. Instead of the silly route that the Scary Movie takes, I'd love to see her transplanted into the role and doing all the right actions that Casey does.
You haven't seen Shaq act.
But that's my cast.
Great job.
Yeah, that was a good one. Okay, we texted about this earlier, Beardos, and we were talking about making sure we kept it silly, so I didn't pick anything serious for my recast.
Good job.
So I'm not necessarily going to go in the exact order that you guys went in, but I'll go in mostly the same order.
Trash, but okay.
You're trash
Thank you.
for trying to keep it set to your own archetypes. People are different. Grow the fuck up. But I will start with Randy Meeks, who I have recast. Instead of Jamie Kennedy, I have cast Harvey Fierstein. Specifically, he's going to be like, Jamie, look out. Jamie, behind you.
Ma!
On the fucking couch, there's a few rules you have to know to make it through a horror movie.
Oh my god. I love it.
And then, so for Stu Macher, I thought Stu Macher was maybe a little bit too laissez-faire of a character. I thought maybe we could class him up a little bit. So I chose Hugh Grant to replace Matthew Lillard so that we could really class the
very
character
fancy
up. So it could be like, at the very end, he'd be like, "Oh, you're really going to enjoy this one. Hold on. It's a scream.
Oh, be back.
Oh, we'll be back. Oh."
Thanks, I hate it.
You're welcome. Who was next? Who was
Billy
that?
Loomis.
Okay. So for Billy Loomis, I thought we could add a little bit more levity to the situation here. So I cast Owen Wilson instead of Skeet Ulrich. So I figured he'd be
That's a good take.
yeah. So I figured he'd be a little bit more light. He'd be like, sometimes we all go a little mad.
Do you know what's really weird?
Wow.
Wow.
I almost put
And then he stabs you. Ka-chow.
him as Dewey for the fact that he could go ka-chow, ka-chow, ka-chow every time he missed shooting them.
I thought he'd make a really good Billy Loomis. Like, he'd
Great
really
job.
bring the atmosphere up, you know?
Yeah.
And then for Dewey, I cast the ultimate buffoon. I wanted to accentuate Dewey's goofiness, so I cast Rowan Atkinson, famously known for Mr. Bean.
Oh my God, yes.
Oh my God. Imagine him as a sheriff deputy.
That is, yeah, so this is Dewey now. And of course, like, he's bumbling. He's a little less vocal, but he's a little more physical with his comedy. So for Tatum Riley, I thought, how could I keep the sensuality of the character intact, but give us something a little different? And I chose Jennifer Tilly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bride of Chucky.
Yeah.
And you could just imagine her saying, "Oh, is this the part where you kill me, Mr. Ghostface?"
I think of that moment from Family Guy.
No, he punched me in the throat because I sound like this.
Yes. And I think
I knew it.
And my boyfriend and I reference this all the time, and she's like, "Lois, this meal is so fucking good."
And she's like,
okay. Wow.
Thanksgiving? Like, this food is so fucking good, Lois.
And so for the roles of Sydney Prescott and Gale Weathers, I chose a dynamic duo.
Ooh.
Again, I wanted to bring a little bit more, levity to the situation here. So I chose circa 1980 Jane Fonda as Sydney Prescott and circa 1980 Lily Tomlin as Gale Weathers.
Yes, bitch. I love it.
They're like grabbing the wrong bodies from the house, putting it in their trunk. And
Yes.
Yeah. He says we got to shorten the trunk.
That's the energy I'm going for.
The killer was the rat poison. I thought it was skinny and sweet.
This is the same duo that strung an adult man up in like leather, like BDSM gear. And that's why they're able to take down the killers. So
that tracks.
I love it. It's great.
So does this mean that Casey Becker was Dolly Parton?
No, actually, I considered doing that, but I also thought like I would be doing Dolly Parton dirty by casting her as Casey Becker, because I considered it for a hot minute. So I chose the person that I originally was going to replace Sydney Prescott with, a la how they cast Scream, possibly.
Yeah.
So I cast as my Casey Becker, my titular Casey Becker, Shelley Duvall.
Oh my God.
With the knife.
Yeah.
Through that entire opening scene, the energy that Shelley
Here's Ghostface
to it. She's up against that wall like Casey Becker is for a minute. She's just like,
And he's like stabbing through the door, and she's just like, ah!
And then he kills her with the Jiffy Pop pen. Yeah.
yes. And so that is my recasting of the movie Scream.
Oh my God.
Fantastic.
You guys did great.
Anyways, I'm pretty sure that I hear the music coming back on.
It's probably been on for a while.
Yeah, so still no sponsors yet, unfortunately. I wonder why.
Well, thank you guys again for joining us for Season 2, Episode 9 of Beards and Sundries. I'm sorry if I went on at length. This is just something that I quite enjoy. So if you quite enjoy Scream as well...
Anthony has his editing skills ahead of him this week, that's for sure.
I sure fucking do. But if you have comments, suggestions, opinions about this episode, please... let us know. It's beardsandsundries@gmail.com, or you can call us.
I'd love to hear your ideas for a recast as well. If you want to play our game, feel free to send us an email with your suggestions.
Send us your recast. We would love that. Also, we have been so excited that we've started getting these voicemails, so please call. You're welcome to say just hi, or you're welcome to say, like, I want to hear you guys talk about this, but just leave a voicemail. It's at 405-999-2242. I guarantee nobody's going to answer the line because I don't sit near that phone, so it's just going to ring a few times and then leave a voicemail, and I will text you back. I will always text you back as a thank you.
You can also find us on Facebook. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Instagram.
And then you can also get on Apple and leave a nice review. We would love to read that out online or on the podcast for you.
Or whatever platform you listen on. Leave a review and we'll read it out on the podcast. And it will also help us get in front of more listeners like you.
Yes, get in touch anytime. We'd love to hear from you. We want to talk to you.
But until then, thank you for joining us for Season 2, Episode 9. And we hope to see you for Episode 10 next week.
And remember that we love you, but it's more important to
love yourself.
That's right, Beardos. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Mwah.